Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Carlie, and I am a Customer Success Manager here with Verbum Catholic Study Software. And I'm so grateful to have you here with me today as we dive into the topic of the power of notebooks with Verbum. So as we get started today, I'm going to go over a few housekeeping items with you, as well as let you know a little bit about my background before we dive into our content for today. And I would also love to get to know you a little bit as well. So if you don't mind, go ahead and drop in the chat box for me your name, where you're viewing from today. And then I'd also love to know, and especially for this particular webinar, it's always helpful for me to have a little bit of context about what your primary use for Verbum is. So are you using it for your own personal study? Are you in a ministry role of some kind, whether you are in teaching faith formation, a DRE, are you a priest or a deacon? Let me know in the chat. That's always helpful to know. Seminarian, etc. There's so many different uses for the software, but it would be helpful for me to have a little context there as well. So while you do that, I'll go over a few housekeeping things with you, and then we will dive into our content for today. So as I mentioned, my name is Carlie, and a little bit about me. So I live in the Pacific Northwest area, and I've been with the Verbum now for a couple of years. But prior to taking on this role, I was in a ministry role for about 7 years. So I worked at a parish in the Seattle Archdiocese in faith formation, working with all ages. I worked with children, I worked with teens, I worked with families, I worked with young adults, and it was a really blessed and beautiful season, and has really lent well as I moved into this role and helping those of you who are in a similar role that I was in, or I worked closely with priests and with individuals as well, of course, to develop spiritual life. So hopefully today you can take a few tools with you as you continue to use the software for whatever those goals are. So I hope to be able to serve you well today. Want to also let you know what you can expect from our session today. So I want to let you know at the end of this webinar, we will be talking about today we'll be talking about how to create notebooks in Verbum. So you will know how to create notebooks. You'll know how to share notebooks by the end of our session together today. And you'll also be able to learn some tips and tricks of the highlighting tool as well, and how to easily add those to your notebook. So this is what we'll be looking at today. We'll be talking about the different perks and benefits of notebooks. And in future webinars, we'll dig into that even further. So thanks for being here today. I want to let you know that our training time is going to be about 30 minutes long today. So we'll have time for questions at the end. So as you have your questions, you don't have to wait till the end to drop them in the Q&A. Feel free to drop them in it there as we go along. But I will get to all questions as at the end of our time together today. You will notice there's a chat box and a Q&A box. So feel free to put chat throughout our session today if you'd like to add different ways you use the tools I'm discussing. But if you have questions, be sure to put those into the Q&A, because this way I won't miss them as we get to the conclusion today. I don't want to miss anyone's questions. There is a survey. I will share it at the end of our session today. I will pop it up for you so you can see it at the end. That, if you don't mind taking that before you leave today, it will really help if you can offer me some feedback as to how today's training served you. If there's improvements I can make for the future, I want to know what those are. But also, if it was a blessing to you, that's helpful for me to know as well, as we continue to assess what is helpful for our Verbum users and what is not. So I'll share that at the end. I'd be so grateful if you'd be willing to go ahead and fill that out for me. The last thing is that today's webinar is being recorded. So I want to just let you know, you're going to receive a copy of that recording by email just a few hours after we conclude today. So because of that, I just invite you, if it's helpful to you, sit back, relax, enjoy your cup of coffee or your lunch. I know I saw we had people from all over. So whatever your time zone is, feel free to just relax if you'd like to. Sometimes if you try to follow along with your software open, you can start to get a little bit lost. And it can be helpful to get a good snapshot this first time through. But then once you have the recording in hand, you can come back, you can rewatch it, pause, play, and practice with your software open at the same time. So that's just a recommendation in case it's helpful to you. But in any case, do look out for that email for me a little bit later today with the recording. And just so you know, that recording will be available for 30 days by email, but these trainings will also be available on demand on our website. So I'll share that link with you at the end today as well. So with that, I'm going to take a look and see who we have here with us today. Then I'll pull my software up and we will dive into our lesson of the day. So let me take a look here and see. Awesome. Welcome. Thanks for being here. We've got Orlando all the way from Portugal. So glad that you're here. Welcome, Gary and Ken and Tom. Awesome. Great. So it looks like we have people using it for personal use, sermon prep, evangelization, all of the things. So this is great. We will talk about how these can serve each one of those different uses as we go through our example today and walk through the process. So if you are joining us later, feel free to drop your name and how you're using the software in the chat box. I'm going to pull my software up right now and we are going to dive into our topic of the day. So for this portion of the webinar, I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off. This way it will be best experience for you because you will be able to see my screen a little bit larger on your end. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off and go ahead and pull my software up now as well. Okay, so today we will be diving into notebooks. We will be talking about how to create a notebook. What is a notebook? First of all, how to create a notebook, how to share those notebooks within Verbum with other users, or how to export them from your software if you wish to. We'll also talk about shortcuts and tips for the highlighting tool because the highlighting tool is a great tool to use alongside your notebooks. So this is what we'll be talking about today. And then we'll just talk about some practical uses for the notebooks as we conclude too. So to start, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my notes tool here. You'll find your notes tool in your toolbox here on the left. If you came to my webinar last week, we talked in depth about the notes tool. And so if you are not familiar or you weren't able to make last week, I can share with you at the end where you can find that recording if you're interested. I'm also going to open up a copy of my Bible here as well. So we'll open both. Okay, so what are notebooks? Notebooks are basically a way that you can organize and collect your notes into one place. It allows you to collect notes into a notebook, for example, where you can find them all collected into one space. As you know, within notes, if you attended last week, you know that within notes, you can tag them, which allows you to sort them, but notebooks allows you to sort them in a different way, allows you to collect them all into one. They're also shareable. So they're a great tool, especially if you are working on any sort of project. Today, we're going to walk through an example. For instance, if we were doing a Bible study, let's just say we're doing a Bible study on Genesis with a group of people, we're reading through and we want to collect highlights and notes as we're studying and keep them all in one place. Note that this could be applicable if you're working on a sermon. I know we have some people here said they're prepping for sermon prep. If you're working on a talk in ministry, doing any sort of evangelization, this is applicable to any task. Also, you can use other resources other than just your Bible, but today we'll be looking at just our Bible, but no, this is applicable to all resources in Verbum. So let's start by creating a notebook. So we're going to navigate over here. You'll notice on our notes tool, if you don't see this filters panel open, you may have to click the hamburger menu here on the top to make it appear. You'll notice this sidebar will appear and disappear as you click that little hamburger menu here at the top left. You'll notice here we have our filters, which we discussed last week, but also here on the right, we have our notebooks. So we're going to navigate to the notebook section. Now you'll see that I have quite a few notebooks here. To create a new notebook, all you need to do is click the little plus sign here to create a new notebook. It will pop that notebook here on the top as an untitled one, and you can go ahead and title it whatever you'd like to. We're just going to title this one Genesis Study, for example. It'll pop down here because they're listed in alphabetical order, and we'll go ahead and open up that notebook. You'll notice as I open up my notebook, there's nothing here, right? I don't have any notes or highlights added to this notebook as of yet. So we're going to talk about how do you add to your notebook. So you can add to your notebook in a variety of ways. Now, before we talk about creating new notes and easily adding those to a notebook, let's talk about adding existing notes to a notebook. Because let's just say, for example, you are just learning about notebooks today, but you have a lot of notes that you think, wow, this would be really helpful for me to put notes and collect them into notebooks. So how do you add existing notes to notebooks? Let's talk about that first. I'm going to close my notebook for the moment. Here are all of my previous notes that I have created. To add notes to notebooks, I can very easily do so just by dragging and dropping notes right into a notebook, for example, just like this. Also, if you want to select multiple notes to add them to a notebook, you can easily do so by selecting multiple. So here I'm selecting one. I can use Shift to select a handful of them. I can use Control to select specific ones, or Command on your, depending on if you're on a Mac or a PC. You'll notice that when you have multiple notes selected, however many you do, you'll notice that this little menu pops up. Now, this menu allows you to assign to a notebook. So notice this section here. If you want to move multiple to one notebook without needing to click, drag, and drop each one of them, feel free to just click this section here under notebooks, and you can select the notebook here and add them in that way. So this is a way that you would add to a notebook. If you have a note open, let's expand this note so I can show you. If you have a note open just like this and you're working on it and you realize, oh, I want to add this to a notebook, you don't have to leave the note to drag and drop. You'll also notice at the top of the notebook, there's this section here to click this and just add this individual note to a notebook as well, just by selecting it just like that, and it will add it there for you. So these are how you add existing notes to notebooks, again, by dragging and dropping, selecting multiple, or having an individual note open and adding it in that way. So there's lots of ways to change it up, add notes to different notebooks, or remove them as well. So let's go ahead and close this note now. So let's go back to open up our notebook here again. I'm going to go ahead and show you now how you would add to a notebook as you're creating new notes. So there's a handful of ways to do that. So let's talk about notes first. Now, if you, I'm going to close the notebook for a moment. If you don't have your notebook open, you can select a text just like this, and you can add to a specific notebook through the context menu. So you'll notice here on the side, we have this panel menu here. And under the reference here, I can select add a note, and I can select under that specific notebook to add it to. So this would be helpful if I don't have my notebook open, but I want to add it to a notebook specifically. So this is one way that you can do it. This final way that I'm going to show you is what I will tell you I believe is the easiest way to add to notebooks and the most efficient if you are working on a project, is to have your notebook open. This is because if your notebook is already open, any notes and highlights that you take will automatically be populated into that notebook. So you don't have to worry about dragging and dropping or assigning notes to a notebook, etc. So it's a great way to easily collect your notes into one place and into a notebook by just having it open. So notice here, if I select this section and just hit the notepad here, add a note, look, it populates it right into my notebook already. I can see my notebook is open here. So because it's open, it populates it there. Now, this is awesome. This is great. This is a great feature of Verbum, but you do have to keep in mind as well, if you don't intend to add a note to a notebook, but you have that notebook open, it will populate it there. So just keep in mind that rule as you're working through and collecting your research. So let's just say we're doing this study on Genesis and I'm taking notes along the way. I'm adding it to my notebook. This is going to allow me to then eventually come back and review these notes. Of course, if I was really doing that study, I would be adding my own notes to the content of the note, etc. But we're just working through this so I can show you the process today. Now, let me show you, let's talk about the highlighting tool. So far, we've only talked about adding notes to notebooks, but you can also use the highlighting tool to add to your notebook. Now, notes will allow, and highlights are really similar, but they are different. Notes, generally speaking, will leave this little icon here, and you can add content to the note. Generally, that's why people use a note, is because they just want this little, some sort of icon to indicate that you have something notated here. You'll notice I'm going to go ahead and pull my highlighting tool up and show you what the highlighting feature looks like. So I'm going to open up my tools here on the left and open up my highlighting tool. So this is what the highlighting tool looks like. If you've never used the highlighting tool, I'm just going to briefly show you. You can scroll through here. You can see there's all sorts of different options that you can use. Sometimes certain users only have one or two highlighting colors that they ever use. They're just their favorite ones, and they always use the same ones, and they don't have any specific reason for one over the other, and that's a great use of it. Other times people use different colors for different purposes. For example, they'll use green to indicate a place, orange to indicate a person, etc. So they have a key within their own mind as to what they've used different colors for. Other times people use different colors or styles for specific projects. This, I think, is a great way to do it because you may be working on a paper or a homily or a Bible study, etc., and you just use a specific highlighter for that project. This way, you know, if, for example, if you're using the same scripture passage for multiple projects, you know which highlights apply to which project just at a glance. So this is a great tip that I've heard others use, and I also use as well in case it's helpful. So to highlight, let me show you how to do this. We'll also talk about some tricks and tips for highlighting. To highlight a text, you just select it just like this, and you can select from anywhere on your palette here to select, for example, this color box section. This is what my text will look like here. You'll notice again that the highlight populates into that notebook for me, so this is great. And I can continue to highlight throughout my reading and select different sections, anything that I like over here. But also on your context menu, you will notice that the most recent 6 highlight styles that you've used will appear here. So you can select those right from the context menu as well if you would like to do so. So again, that's going to have the most recent 6 styles that you used. So let's talk about a couple tips and tricks now, just to help you with a few shortcuts. So first of all, there are 3 shortcuts already built into the software for the notes and highlighting tool that are helpful to be aware of. And I want to share those with you today. So the first one is using just the letter N to create a note on the text. So if you select a text just like this and you hit N on your keyboard, it will automatically create a note for you. So this is just a quick way to create a note. Again, by just hitting N, the letter N for note on your keyboard will automatically just create a note there for you. A couple of the other 2 that are built into the software is if you use the letter H on your keyboard. Notice I just hit H on my keyboard there. It will use that most recent highlighted text or highlighter style that you utilized here on the text for you. So again, that's H. And then the last one that's built into the software is R for remove. So if you select the text again and you hit R on your keyboard, it will remove that annotation for you. So again, N for note, H for highlighting style, adding the most recent highlighting style, and then R for removing annotations. Those are the 3 that you should be aware of and that can be helpful for you as well. So I'll pop those here into the chat for you in case you would like to write those down. I'm going to pop them in the chat right now briefly before I move on and show you the next section here. So for our next, these are, again, I mentioned that these 3 are ones that are built into the software, but we also are able to create our own shortcuts. And this is a really helpful tool just for efficiency as you are working through your study, whether it's, again, Bible study like we're looking at today, or for your own personal study, sermon prep, etc. So let's talk about those ways that you can create your own shortcuts. You'll notice here I have a few of my highlighting styles that have a little number or letter next to them. These are shortcuts that I have added. So for example, if I select this text and I hit B on my keyboard, notice that it highlights it in blue since I've created that shortcut. So here's how you create your own shortcuts for any style that you'd like. So as I scroll down here, I could select, for example, this large text here, and I could click the little arrow. You'll notice that there's an option here for a shortcut key, and I can select any one of them. So maybe I select Z for this. Now this automatically becomes my shortcut for this annotation. So as I select this section here, if I hit Z on my keyboard, it will highlight it in that way for me. So this is really helpful, again, just to be able to quickly go through, highlight if you have certain styles that you use with frequency, or maybe you even set one up for a particular project that you're working on. You can always remove those shortcuts as well, just by clicking on the arrow, scrolling down and clicking clear shortcut, just like that. The reason I tell you about the 3 that are already built into the software, the N and then the H and the R, is because you can still override those. Maybe you don't like those. You can use H and N and R, and you can set up, for example, I could make this yellow highlighter. I could use R for it if I wanted to, but this will override that shortcut key that's already built in. So just keep that in mind. Verbum will do what you want it to do. So if you use that R for this style, it will remove, or it will allow you to use it in that way. If you ever use one of these accidentally and you realize later, oh no, I want to go back, I want to use that shortcut that's already built into the software, again, just clear the shortcut just like this, and it will default back to that original setting. So these are some quick tips and tricks on how to add highlights or notes to your notebook. And again, remember, we didn't have to do any dragging or dropping or moving these specific notes around because we already had our notebook open. They automatically populated to that notebook. So this is super, super helpful. So there's some other perks to putting notes and highlights into notebooks. And let's talk about what some of those are. So aside from just being able to collect them all into one place, you also it benefits you because you can use, for example, your visual filters to hide particular notes based on the notebook that they're in. So let's talk about that. Visual filters, if you recall, are available up here at the top. These 3 little dots are where we will find our visual filters. If we click this button, let's scroll down. So in my notes webinar, and maybe if you're familiar with notes, you will know that you can easily click on and off all of your notes and highlights. You can just click this and it makes all your notes and highlights disappear so that they're not visible to you for the moment, but you can always click them back on as well. Well, when you have notes and highlights in specific notebooks, you can choose which notes and highlights are on or off. So, for example, if you are working on, maybe you have created different notebooks for your different homilies in the past or different studies in the past, and you've named those based on the title, and you're working on a new project and you don't want these to be a distraction to you as you're working on the project, you can toggle those on and off based on the notebook. So here, for example, is our Genesis study. You can go ahead and click that one off so that if I want to create new notes and highlights on this and still have them appear, I just have that study turned off here. So this is really helpful to be able to select which notes you want to see and don't want to see. And putting them in notebooks allows you to do that and to really specify which ones you'd like to see at any particular time. So those visual filters are very helpful for that purpose. So now we've talked about so far, just as a quick recap, we've talked about how to create notes and highlights and add them to our notebook, whether it's by dragging and dropping, by adding from the context menu, or just having that notebook open and including creating those notes and highlights and having them added there for us. Now, let's talk a few more details about the notebook before we talk about other uses and perks and benefits and how to share. So I want to let you know that notes can only be housed or homed in one notebook at a time. So notes can only live in one notebook. Also, if you delete a notebook, it will delete all the contents of the note within that, all the contents of that notebook. So all the notes and highlights will be deleted. Now, this can be helpful if that's what you're hoping for. It's great because you can delete them all at one time. Let's just say you're working on a project and you want all those notes to be gone. Delete the notebook and you don't have to click through multiple notes to delete them all, which is great. But on the flip side, if you delete that whole notebook and you didn't intend to delete all the contents within it, they will be deleted. So I want to walk you through two things: how to restore those notes if you accidentally delete them, and secondly, how to just remind you how to move those notes out of a notebook before you delete the notebook if there are certain ones you'd like to keep. So let's talk about both of those things. So here in the bottom of our notebook here, or notes tool here, we have our trash. So here you'll notice if I click this trash, you can see, let's close my highlighting tool and give us a little more space for the moment. You can see all of my trash notes, and if I navigate here to my trash notebooks. So if I want to restore any of these, I just click on the notebook and I can click undelete or permanently delete. So you can clear this out at any time or restore them. If you don't permanently delete them, they will always live here in the trash. So you can always find them again later if you wish to. Okay, so this is how you would restore it if you accidentally delete something. But if you want to delete this notebook, but there's certain notes you want to save, just remember to select whatever notes you want to save and move them out of the notebook by dragging and dropping, or going to the top of the note here and selecting no notebook, or selecting a specific notebook, or by selecting multiple notes using shift to select multiple, or control. And here you'll notice you can do this multiple at a time by adding these all to no notebook, and it takes them out of that notebook for you before you delete it. So this is how these are a few things that are just helpful to know about notebooks as you start to utilize them. Okay, so notebooks and sharing them and the perks, and aside from just being able to collect them all in one space, being able to use those visual filters to hide or to view your notes on the actual text, let's talk about sharing our notebooks as well as accessing other people's notebooks if we would like to, and then also some of the other ways that notebooks can be used in the software. So first of all, I want to show you how to share your notebooks. So here we have our notebook open. We can click this share button here at the top of the screen to make this notebook public so that anyone within Verbum can access it just by toggling this, or by sharing it with a group. So I'm doing a Bible study here. If I want to share this study with a group of people, maybe I'm doing it with a handful of people and I want to share my notes or my highlights with that group, I can put all the notes and highlights that I want to share with a specific group into a notebook, and I'm able to share that. So if you've created a group within Faith Life, you will see those groups populated here, and you can search and find that group to share your notebooks with. So this can be a really helpful tool to be able to share in that way. You can also export your notes from the software. And I showed this last time, but I'll show it here one more time today by selecting multiple. So let's just say you select all of your notes here. To share, you select them, and then you can click print export here, and it will pull all of those notes into one onto a piece of paper here, which you can then copy to your clipboard or send to a PDF document or a Word document, etc. So these are all of your options if you want to export it from the software altogether. This would be how you would go ahead and do that. So let me show you where your notebooks live. So aside from living in your notes tool, which we can see here, of course, we talked about clicking on and off our hamburger menu here and navigating over to the notebooks and finding all of our notebooks. Notebooks are considered a document. So your documents are housed here on the left under documents. So you'll find all of your notes that are in notebooks in your documents. So this is another perk of putting them in your notebooks. And let's talk about why. So let's navigate to our documents here so I can show you this. Here's our documents section. So you'll notice as I open this, let's make this a little bit bigger here so you can see. Here are my documents. So I can filter them by type. So for example, I can filter them by notebook here. And I can see all of my notebooks here. I can also select to share my notebooks from my documents as well. I can also search my documents right here. I can also take a look at any documents that are shared. So if you recall when we looked at how we would share a notebook, here's how you would access a notebook if somebody else shared it with you. So let me show you how to do that. This section here is groups. If I navigate over to groups, I don't have any groups here in my demo account, but if you had created a faith life group, again, with a Bible study or a parish group, etc., you can share those notebooks here and you would find other notebooks shared with you by other groups in this section. You can also look at the public resources here. So public is anything that was shared publicly. So I showed you how you could share it publicly if you wish to. If you navigate over to public here, you'll notice there are all sorts of different types of documents, but specifically today we were looking at notebooks. Let's navigate here. There's over 1,800 notebooks that you can take a look at. You can see what other people have shared. And if you're ever interested in any one of the shared notebooks or public notebooks that are created by Verbum and Logos users, so it's going to be many people who've created these, you can click on that and click add to your docs. So these are shared by other users because they want you to be able to access them if you wish to. So you can always search through these if you're ever interested in taking a look at them. And you can narrow it down by different tags. For example, this one here on the catechism, etc. Whatever you like to do to narrow it down if you're interested in taking a look at it. So these are where you'll find those public notebooks, or if others have shared them publicly and they tell you the title, you can always come here and search for that title here as well. So because they're documents, I'll also show you one last thing that I think is really helpful to know about notebooks. And that is that if you recall last week, we talked about how you can tag your notes. And if you tag your notes, you can search by tags in our search here. Let's expand this for the moment. Make this a little bigger so you can see it. You can search under your docs section. And in future webinars, I'll go into this even more in depth with you. If you keep coming to my webinars, please do. I have another webinar that I'll be scheduling for December that will talk even more about this. But you can search through your documents and you can find any documents tagged in similar things, and notebooks allow you to find notes that you've tagged in that way as well. So if you want to be able to search for tags specifically in your docs, be sure to put those in a notebook. And like I mentioned, we'll talk about that more in depth down the road. Okay, the very last thing I want to show you before I jump to questions, and this is just a quick preview. I will be offering an additional webinar on this down the road. I'm so excited. I want to preview these things just so you get a quick example and glance at it, but just know that we'll go into more depth on each one of these things if you're interested. I'm going to close this for a moment and open up in my tools, my homily builder. Now, I will tell you, the homily builder can be used for homilies, but as we know, as Catholics, we don't use a slideshow for our homily. So a lot of times this homily builder goes unused, even though it can be used without that slideshow option. If you're not familiar, the homily builder is awesome. For those of you who are in ministry, if you're doing any sort of presentations, don't let the title of homily builder have you dismiss this tool. And the only reason I want to show this to you briefly, and again, I'll be scheduling a webinar shortly to go more in depth if you're interested, but just notice if you put your prep for any sort of presentation into a notebook, you can grab your notes from your notebook here in your under the homily tool. You can pull any notebook just like this. So for example, our Genesis study, you can easily pop those highlights or notes into that presentation and it creates slides automatically for you. So just a little teaser, if anyone wants to explore that before that webinar comes out, I don't want to deter you from exploring that on your own. So I do like to show you that as well as one of the powerful tools of ways that notebooks can work. So we'll delve into that more in the future. But with that, this is what I wanted to cover with you today of how to create a notebook, how notebooks can really be used across Verbum in so many different ways. I hope today you found this helpful. I'm going to go over a few concluding comments with you before we jump to questions. I saw some come through. So let's go over those concluding questions first. And then I will jump to your questions, concluding comments first, and I'll jump to your questions. So first of all, I want to let you know that I'm going to email you a recording of this webinar along with other links. I saw a couple people join late, so I just want to let you know, don't stress. You're going to receive a recording of this webinar just in a couple hours after we conclude. So watch your email for that. Occasionally, it goes to spam, so check your spam if you don't see that email within just the next couple of hours. If you take the survey for me, it'd be so helpful. I'm going to pop it up now in case anybody has to leave, but you can feel free to wait to take it. You can click it. It'll open us. You can feel free to wait to take it, but I will pop it up right now for you if you do have to go before questions. I'm just going to pin it to the top of the chat, so feel free to, no need to click it now. If you want to stick around, you can take it later. You'll see it there at the top of the chat. Last thing I want to tell you before we get to those questions. If you have any questions about your own resources or best pricing on adding to your software, for example, if you don't have the homily tools, but you're in ministry and you just realized, wow, creating slideshows, and I'll tell you, it's a very helpful tool. As one who created many, many slideshows over my years in ministry, it cuts down so much time on that. If that's something you're interested in adding the full feature set to have access to that or anything else, I want to let you know that here's a phone number you can call, the 888-918-0768. Call and talk to our library specialist because this week only, I think the last date is November 30th, they're offering up to 35% off any Verbum package. I think it's between 30 and 35, depending on which one you're looking at. They can walk you through that process. But those are not all advertised on the website. Some of them you do need to call this number for. So make sure you call the number and talk to them about your options, best pricing if you'd like to add that. Also would add so many different resources to your library. So I wanted to share that with you, just an exclusive. I spoke with somebody right before this webinar and just to ensure that I could share that with you and let you know that you'll just need to call that number to talk to them if you'd like to go ahead and add that, add anything. So feel free to write the number down and give them a call if you'd like to. So with that, I'm going to take a look at questions, and we will go over any questions that you might have in relation to notebooks. Okay, Deacon Tom says, I have Verbum on my desktop and my laptop. Will notes sync between the computers? Yes, they will. So as long as you're signed into the same account, of course, they will sync. So they sync across all devices. So whether you're using a tablet, your phone, etc., notes will always sync as long as you are signed into the same account and you are, of course, connected to Wi-Fi. If for some reason you're not, because you can use Verbum offline. So if for some reason you're using it offline, it's not connected to Wi-Fi, of course, it's not going to sync. But if you're connected to Wi-Fi, then absolutely. Okay, Ken asks, if you do not have a notebook open or adding notes on an iPad, where are the notes stored or in which notebook? Yeah, great question, Ken. So let me show you. I'm going to pull my software back up here. So when you create notes in your notes tool, let's go ahead and open the notes tool here. If you create a new note at any time, or you don't have a notebook open and you just create a note just like this, you'll notice that this note is not in a notebook. So if you look at the top here, you'll notice it's not in a notebook. It's just no notebook. And so you can have all of your notes in no notebook. Sometimes people have used the notes tool for years and they've never used notebooks before and they just didn't know about them. So if you create a note, all of your notes, whether they're in a notebook or not in a notebook, are stored in one place, and that's here. So currently I have my notes tool open, and you'll notice here it says all. This means I have all of my notes here in one place, all my notes and highlights all together. So whether they're in a notebook or not in a notebook, they're stored here. Notebooks just allow you to further sort them. So if I want to pull some of these notebooks and be able to sort them down and filter them down, you'll notice there's all these options to filter here on the left, for example, using tags, personal tags, or by Bible book, etc. Notebooks allow you to collect them into one place, and they'll live both here and in that notebook. So they'll live both places. However, their primary place that they live is that notebook, which is why if you delete the notebook, it also deletes the notes from this notes tool, etc. The notebooks just allow you to have all those other perks that we talked about today, sharing them, and also, pulling them into Homily Builder if you want to put a presentation together, etc. So, okay, let's see what the next question here is. Okay, Tom said, last week I got a 30% through the chat feature after letting them know I watched your webinar. Awesome. Great. That's excellent. So I'm glad you were able to reach out to them, Tom. So yeah, reach out to them, let them know you watched my webinar, and they will, our library specialists are excellent, and they can help you out. It does, if you have time to make the phone call, it does benefit me if you call through. If you can't get through or you don't have time, chat through. I want you to get the best deal possible no matter what. It doesn't benefit me monetarily, but it just shows that what I'm doing is offering value, because they do track those calls. So if you have time to call, always benefits me. But like I said, my priority is that you get what you need and you get that best discount on the products. So feel free to chat in if that's your option, especially if you're overseas. Don't worry about it. Just chat in. Don't worry about the cost of that. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Tom, because I know we had a couple people here who are, we have somebody in Portugal, etc. Don't call, chat in. So thanks for noting that, Tom. Okay. And yes, you can chat in just through our website. Just look for that chat with the library specialist or the sales team. They'll walk you through it. And it's a great deal. This is right now, this is the best deal that I've seen on Verbum 10. So I encourage you to check it out if you're interested in adding anything. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions right now, so I'll stick around here for another moment. I'll also tell you, if you're interested in, maybe you're not interested in adding additional tools, there's some really great commentaries as well as homiletic tool resources on sale with Verbum as well. Deep discounts for some of those packages. So that's another reason to call if you're just looking for some other tools specific to those, or excuse me, not tools, resources specific to that, like other books you'd like to add. So feel free to give them a call or check out our website. But our library specialists are great at guiding you through that. Also looking at your they can see everything that you own already and let you know the best way to get a discount. Or if you already have something similar, they'll let you know that and maybe suggest something different. So hopefully that helps. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and conclude, but I want to let you know, I'm going to drop my email here in the chat as well. If you end up having questions for me, you know where to find me. Feel free to shoot me an email at any time. I'm always happy to help as you start to play around with these notebooks if you've never used them before in the past, and you're have any questions that come up, feel free to shoot me an email if I can assist you in any way. Always happy to do so. And if you don't mind taking that survey for me, truly, truly, it would be such a gift to me to hear from you, to know if it was helpful. And also it shows, again, another way that you show that these are valuable to you is by completing those surveys, so we can continue to offer these types of live trainings where you can ask questions and continue to learn how to use the software. So take that survey for me if you would. And I'm going to go ahead and conclude. But I want to say thank you so much for your time today. It is such a blessing to be here with you, and I hope you have a beautiful Thanksgiving with your family. I will be saying a prayer for you today as I conclude this webinar, that each of you have safe travels if you're traveling, have a beautiful and blessed time with family, friends, or whoever you are celebrating the season with. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to connecting with you hopefully again next week. And on that, in fact, let me just grab one more thing for you here. I'm remembering now. If you haven't signed up for our webinar next week yet, here is the link to all of our webinars. And I'll be adding to that. I'll be adding a couple new webinars in December as well, with future topics about things that I mentioned today. So feel free to click that link, sign up for those future webinars. And I just want to say thanks one more time. So looking forward to seeing you again in the future. God bless you all.